We are officially in guys running routes against air season, Aidan, which can only mean one thing. Dynasty player values are changing with each tweet. And on today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we will be talking through two players on the current Dynasty streets that are currently being undervalued after the NFL draft and right before OTAs. I'm your host, Shaun Moran, and I'm joined by my co-host, my good friend, and my fellow knower ball, Aidan Haller. Aidan, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Shaun. I just completed a little underdog Wawa this afternoon. So week 17 correlation is in play. The schedule is out. We're gonna let it rip with best ball. We're really gonna get into it on this channel in the coming months here. But now that the schedule is out, it's fair game. We did a couple before the schedule because we're sickos. I know there's some of you listening that probably did the same, but no, it's fair game now. No one can look at you differently now that the schedule's out.
A best ball draft a day, it keeps the doctor away. And if you have not played best ball and you're interested, promo code RTM on Underdog. Use promo code RTM. They will match your deposit up to $100. Free money to play best ball draft fantasy teams. You know what to do. But before we dive into today's episode, Aidan, two things. If you are a part of the 70% of people who are watching this video but aren't yet subscribed to the Regression to the Mean podcast, you know what to do. Like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the notifications to make sure you aren't missing any of the content that we are dropping weekly on this channel. And second, we'd love to hear from you, the Mean Team. Let us know who you're drafting, who you're fading, who you're buying, who you're selling in the comments below. All right, Aidan, on our next episode, we're going through two players that we're selling. So later on in the weekend, if you're looking for some content, you know what to do, Mean Team. Go ahead and watch the sells video. On today's episode, though, part one, we're highlighting two guys that we are buying right now based off their keep, trade, cut evaluation. All right, Aidan, who is the market undervaluing right now? Who should people be buying?
Yeah. This is a guy that I love. I think all three of us are pretty in step with this guy. And it's Kyler Murray. I absolutely love Kyler Murray. I think there's just so much trending up for him in the right direction. Just taking a look at Kyler Murray, he's currently QB 11 on keep, trade, cut. Who's in the middle of, just for reference, Anthony Richardson and Jordan Love are just ahead of him. Jaden Daniels and Trevor Lawrence are just behind him. I think he's pretty fairly priced personally. I'd maybe move him up one or two. I'm mainly just buying because of like the price of where he is, and I think what you're going to get is totally worth it. Kyler Murray's still just 27 years old. Actually just under that, going into his 2024 season, is under contract through 2028. Sure, they may be able to avoid some of the years towards the end, but at the very minimum, with the dead cap, he's going to be under contract through, at the very minimum, next year. It goes down to about 20 million in dead cap beyond that. So, he's not going anywhere for the next 2 years. And then you just look at his offense, it's significantly better this year. You've got Trey McBride, absolute beast, just drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round there. Zay Jones, Michael Wilson aren't the sexiest picks, but those are good wide receivers. And then you got the torture chamber too. Tack in James Conner, Trey Benson. That's a pretty good offense.
Chamber.
Don't forget about the torture. Don't you dare forget about the torture chamber. Two pretty capable running backs. I think that's going to be a pretty good backfield. Like, I could see them going 50-50 split pretty early on. We've talked about James Conner, in our most recent episode. Like, James Conner just consistently breaks down. That's just who he is. I think Trey Benson splitting him is pretty good for him. And then just looking at Kyler Murray's past production, like, what's not to like? In 2019 through 2021, when he played full seasons, he was the QB 3, 6, and 10. I know he missed some time over the last 2 years, but it's like, well, how did he do? On a point per game basis, he was QB 9 both years. This is a super productive fantasy quarterback. He averages just shy of 40 rushing yards a game. So, you're tacking on 4, 5, potentially, 10 if he gets in the end zone on the ground every week, which is nice. He's got a good receiving core. Feels like a lock to be somewhere in the top 10. It's hard to juggle like who's going to be in there because it feels like the top 5, you feel really good about. But that 5 to 10, I don't see why Kyler can't firmly be in a top 10 quarterback this year. So I like him, in terms of like what is it going to cost to get Kyler Murray? I think there's a couple of different ways to do it. If you're just going 1-for-1, like you're probably going early first round pick, which I personally wouldn't do. This is probably going to be a pick plus a player. Two kind of different packages I have would be like a late first rounder, which I'd be okay with trading away this year. They got the Lad McConkey, the Bo Nix range. Trade away a guy like that plus maybe Debo or James Cook for Kyler Murray. I'd personally do that, and then maybe a little cheaper, like an early to mid second, plus a guy like Saquon, maybe Zay Flowers. I think there's a couple of creative ways to go get Kyler Murray. I wouldn't recommend doing an early first rounder for him. I'd rather get a guy like Caleb, Drake May, or Jaden. Just given the rookie contract and the age there. But Kyler Murray he's gettable. He's not in that top 5 QB multiple first round pick range that's unattainable. Like you can get Kyler Murray for a relatively good cost and kind of assuming like top 10 QB play. So how do you feel about Kyler? I know you're high on a couple of other guys on the Cardinals, but how do you feel about the guy throwing the ball there?
The Cardinals were a top 10 offense in EPA per play, yards per play, and TD drive percentage with Kyler Murray under center in weeks 10 through 18 last year. They now are adding Marvin Harrison Jr. Kyler is now a full year removed from ACL recovery. Big fan of their OC, Drew Petzing. I think he called an excellent run game. And Kyler last season, the reason that I really like him this year is they used him at the goal line as a runner. And that was something that I think was really slept on. He had 35% of the Cardinals inside the 5 rushing attempts, and he only played in 8 games last year. I feel like this guy's floor is like 18, 19 fantasy points. And if things break right with Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., he could score 22, 23 fantasy points per game again. So I like him. I think they might run the ball a little bit too much for him to get home. I don't know how pass happy they're going to be, but he showed really no signs of he didn't really look like a compromised runner after the ACL.
Yeah,
maybe
he still rushed for
a little bit.
Like it was about like 30 yards a game. Like it was barely under his career average.
Yeah,
coming off the ACL, I've got to assume he's back around that 37, 40 yards per game mark this year, fully recovered.
I'm bullish on this offense. I'm kind of just bullish on the Cardinals in general. And man, Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride with James Conner and Trey Benson sprinkling a little torture chamber. They just brought in Zay Jones, who isn't great, but he's a professional wide receiver. And then Michael Wilson showed flashes as a rookie. So
yeah,
I mean, this is a decent take a step forward team, right? They had so many draft picks.
Sure.
What do they have? How many draft picks do the Cardinals have? They had 10 top.
Yeah, they had
100 picks.
Quite a few in the top 50 or 100. It was pretty good.
They took a tight end when they don't even need to. That's how many picks they had. They're like, we'll take a backup tight end. That's
they got bored.
Man, I think I'm in. I'm in redraft. I'm in best ball. I'm in Dynasty. He's not old yet. He's entering his physical prime. That contract, they basically had an out with him last year. They didn't take it. Their head coach, Gannon, seems all in. And I think Gannon coached him really well last year. So I don't think Gannon's going to get fired by any means. And
yeah, we were kind of off last year. We thought, the season party in terms of him being on the way out. But it's like they couldn't be more in on Kyler Murray right now. And for that reason, it's a great time to get a hold of him.
The vibes were so bad with Cliff Kingsbury. They were so bad. And it's kind of crazy to see the vibe shift and what that did for Kyler. And I think a lot of their losing and their, back end of the season implosions were blamed on him per se. And man, Cliff's looking bad. Cliff goes and kind of ruins Caleb a little bit last year. He has a terrible experience towards the end with Kyler. It's a Jaden Daniels tweet, I guess. But yeah, I feel really good about Kyler. I would feel comfortable trading a mid first round, for sure a late round first, if you can get off of it. And then maybe a veteran wide receiver, maybe pay up. Maybe I would hurt, but somebody like Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, one of these year 2 guys that's ultra promising, it would sting a little bit, but that in a late round first, maybe that brings you Kyler Murray. I do think you then have a rock solid QB 10, QB 9, top 9, top 10 with top 5, top 3 upside if things break right. So I feel really good about trade for Kyler Murray.
Oh, we've got another QB we're buying today, aren't we?
Yeah, we got two. And I alluded to it at the top of the episode about guys in shorts thrown against air. And Keegan's not on the episode with us today, right? But this is like Keegan's number one pet peeve, and I agree with him. Any guy you see on fantasy Twitter that like, has a video of Ben Sinnott catching a pass in a 7-on-7, and he's like, Ben Sinnott to the moon. It's like, come on, like nothing
like,
changes fundamentally because someone catches a video, but. A guy that did catch my attention throwing in shorts was my sweet prince, Anthony Richardson. Aidan, have you seen the videos of him throwing against air? Have you seen the ones circulating around?
He's got an absolute
X?
rocket arm, dude. It's pretty. And the best is not only is it nice in shorts, they slow it down in slow motion, and it's just like tight spiral on the numbers, just like perfect delivery. And you're like, now we're talking rewind. You watch it again.
Everyone's talking about the shoulder because, again, the shoulder's a big deal. He had to get surgery on his throwing shoulder, which isn't great. It was early enough in the year. It looks like his rehab's going great. I think he's going to throw
he's fine
every day through OTAs and camp. So it doesn't really seem like that's going to hinder his off-season training, which is great. You love to see that for A-Rich. I was looking at his feet, though, in some of these videos, and they look great. He hits like the 3-step drop. His feet look really coordinated. They look good. The accuracy looks better. Again, things will change when you put pass rush in his face, and you got linemen, defensive players on the field. But it looks like he made strides in his throwing motion with his footwork, which is huge because outside of injuries, really the only knock on Anthony Richardson is probably his accuracy. Now, he showed flashes, like that Rams game was insane, like just downfield darts and crazy tight windows, big throws galore. But, he missed some bunnies. It wasn't always accurate. His completion percentage over expected wasn't that great. So, like, he needs to clean up some things to become a more accurate passer. Hopefully he did that. And then he has the injuries, right? But I'm looking at him right now. He's the QB9. So he was like the QB5, 6. And then we bring in Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. All these rookies are going to push some guys down. But I don't really know why A-Rich is falling. And if we're talking about purely fantasy points, I don't... Like, I get it. CJ Stroud is an incredible player. He has a dark horse chance to be the MVP next year. He knows ball. He's so well likable. But in terms of the ability to score fantasy points, Anthony Richardson puts CJ Stroud to shame. He puts really anyone in front of him to shame based off the limited sample size that he had. Dude, he averaged 0.76 fantasy points per dropback last season. And I've pulled this before when we've talked about Dynasty QB rankings. There've only been 7 QBs since 2013 that have had as many dropbacks as Anthony Richardson had that have cleared a 0.7 or higher fantasy points per dropback. You got Jalen Hurts. You got Cam Newton. You've got Lamar Jackson. You got Justin Fields, Nick Foles, Ryan Tannehill, Taysom Hill. There's some clear hits. There's some clear misses. All right. I started
towards the end of that.
I started with the hot ones. But I mean, like, come on. Those two that Tanny year in 2020 was absurd. Nick Foles was on a 1-year heater. So was Justin Fields. Taysom Hill doesn't really play quarterback, so you could poke some holes in this, right? But there's some great guys on this list. There's some so-so guys. With the Arthur Smith year, right? With A.J. Brown in 2020, where they just went bonkers. No fans in the stands, right? For Ryan Tannehill's masterpiece. But Tannehill is actually an insanely good quarterback for a couple of years. Now, there are going to be people on this list, and some people will say, all right, Justin Fields. They'll say that, probably throw that out. Justin Fields was kind of a flash in a pan, better fantasy quarterback than he was actual quarterback, right? So I get that. But, you watched a lot of Justin Fields, and I know you watched Anthony Richardson play last year. I'd say the reason why I'm more bullish on Richardson than Fields, twofold. One, I don't think Richardson makes the same sack mistakes that Fields did. Fields would hold on to the ball a little too long, would take too many costly sacks. That's just not going to get you to a second contract in the NFL. Coaches hate that when you take sacks. Anthony Richardson was amazing at avoiding sacks in college, and he was really good in a limited sample size last season. 2, the infrastructure out of the gates for Anthony Richardson is just bonkers. It's so good. It's so good. You have Shane Steichen.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
Head coach, play caller, which you love, who's really good, who's extracted insane value out of his quarterbacks. Justin Herbert's top fantasy seasons were with Shane Steichen as quarterback coach. Jalen Hurts' top season was Shane Steichen as OC. Shane Steichen made Gardner Minshew so good, he got a $15 million per year contract, right? So I think Gardner should give half that contract to Shane fucking Steichen, right? Because that's how well he played under Steichen last year. And then you partner that with an offensive line that I think was supposed to be bad, but surprised people. That's bringing back all 5 starters, which you love. You love continuity on the offensive line.
Yeah, you love that.
Their pass catching group is awesome. I'm a big fan of Michael Pittman, target hog, poor man's Keenan Allen, but poor man's Keenan Allen is a very good NFL player. I'm a big fan of Josh Downs. A.D. Mitchell in the first round, I was out. A.D. Mitchell in the second round, give me that all day, right? If 10 receivers go before A.D. Mitchell, I'm taking him easy money in this environment, in this infrastructure with Shane Steichen. Give me Jonathan Taylor. And you got Anthony Richardson at the point of the spear. So I think he makes less mistakes than a guy like Justin Fields. He has a better infrastructure than someone like Justin Fields. And he was way younger than guys like Nick Foles, Ryan Tannehill when they broke out. But why did those guys break out? Because they had really good play callers, right? When they broke out. You have Doug Peterson with Nick Foles and Ryan Tannehill with Arthur Smith, right? I can't believe I just said Arthur Smith, but Arthur Smith was cooking with gas back in 2020, all right?
Don't
He
say
really
his
was.
name.
He really was, all right? I'll give him that. He was cooking with gas in 2020. It's been 5 years, though, Arthur. Come on, figure it out. So, dude, it's such a good setup for Richardson. Even if he doesn't score 25 fantasy points per game, which is what he averaged, he's probably going to score 22 if he's healthy. Like, it's just how this offense is going to be built around his skill set. Outside of the injuries, Aidan, what's the negative? Do you have one outside of just purely you're afraid he won't hold up?
No, and that's been my biggest like red flag that I've kind of been firm on. Is the injuries. Like, you look at his 3 games, like his 3 full games or like 3 legit games last year, like he would have paced to be QB2 last year. He was like truly special, both passing and rushing the football. I think one of my favorite things watching Anthony Richardson last year was their offense inside the 10-yard line. Like kind of that triple threat, like RPO they were running was truly fucking silly. Like, defenses had no idea. I'm sure they're going to catch up. Like, the more reps you see, like, you'll start to pick up on cues, but it was layups inside the 10, whether, he's pulling it and walking in the end zone, dunk him on off. Like, it was really easy. So to your point, like, I think the infrastructure is really why, like, you can really be bullish on Anthony Richardson Anthony Steichen, Shane Steichen, sorry. Amazing play caller, head coach there, believes in Anthony Richardson, has built an offense tailored to his skill set, like, which you absolutely love. You've got good wide receivers. You've got a good offensive line. You've got Jonathan Taylor behind you. He didn't play with Jonathan Taylor last year, too, which people, may or may not have forgotten. That is a huge boost for that offense. Sure, Zach Moss was, a fantasy darling for a little bit, but he's not Jonathan Taylor. I'm expecting Jonathan Taylor to have a pretty big year. I think that's someone that's, a little undervalued kind of in all formats too, personally. I'm excited, man. Like, he's in a really good position. I think too, like, sitting, like, the injury wasn't good, but I think sitting, like, may have been good for him a little bit. Like, just seeing more reps, taking more mental reps ahead of him is kind of like, that rookie sit season. Like, he got reps in, was really damn good. Probably learned a ton sitting on the sideline last year. So, my biggest red flag with him, and still is, his health. He kind of plays, Cam Newton Superman ball, and is like, I would if I was his size too. Like, if I'm him, I'm like, there's not a single guy on this field that can catch me or tackle me. If you want to, let's do it. Just bull in a china shop. So it's no, I like him. It's, to your point, it's like, I think Kyler has, like, top 5, top 10 upside, whereas, like, Anthony Richardson has, like, truly, like, top QB1. 3, like, QB1 upside, and we saw it early on. It was incredible. I think the upside is even higher here. And again, he's ranked 2 spots higher than Kyler, which makes sense.
22 years old. He's 22 years old.
No,
Stephen Holder wrote an article about his offseason, and his QB coach said Anthony Richardson's the most gifted athlete in the world, too. He's like, he's just the most gifted athlete I've ever been around.
He's a fucking freak, dude.
Sounds like he's actually really good on the board, too. Like, he understands the game of football. He seems smart. He seems like he's got a really good grasp on seeing it, right? Like, pre and post snap. And it's not like a Trey Lance situation where him sitting just doomed him because he just hadn't played enough quarterback. Like, Richardson's inexperienced. He's not raw, if that makes sense. Like, he has some things he needs to clean up, but he's not like this raw, unfinished. No, he just
No,
kind
we
of needs
saw
to,
it.
to mature as
Yeah, we
like,
saw it. He just needs more reps. It's he's I wouldn't say raw by any means.
yeah.
That's a very complete skill set. It's just like you just need more game reps. Really, it's like the NFL is confusing. Like defensive coordinators are really fucking good at tricking young quarterbacks. It's just seeing more things in front of you, making some mistakes, and kind of rolling with it.
And the injuries too with Richardson, he gets a concussion on a touchdown run, right? He scored 20 fantasy points in a quarter against the Texans.
Dude, he finished with 29.6 and exited early Q2, right?
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, he gets a concussion on like celebrating the touchdown. He like jumps in the end zone, hits the back of his head, and he pulls himself out of the game. The first game, he just kept running too much, and they just pulled him out of the game because it looked like he kind of bruised his knee, just took too many hits, and then that last hit, he just go down, dude. Like I wish I could go, like the meme where it's like girls go back in the time machine, guys. I'd be like, Richardson, go down, bro. Don't let Jeffrey Simons
get out of bounds,
land on your shoulder, bro. You're done. But I'm so bullish on Richardson. QB9's crazy. Come on,
I just hope he stays healthy. Like a full season with him would be pretty damn entertaining, man. It's that's gonna be fun this year and beyond. He's 22.
Hopefully, man. Hopefully.
It's not just this year.
Hopefully. At least it's not soft tissue injuries. It's not Christian Watson or Greg Dulcich.
No, it's 10.
Luckily, we're not dealing with a bulky hamstring or Darren Waller's hamstring. Oh my goodness.
Darren Waller might not be playing football.
Yeah. We're not dealing with hamstring injuries. These are kind of like contact injuries. Hopefully we can limit those. But that's it. We're buying Kyler Murray. We're buying Anthony Richardson. If you have any comments, drop them underneath this video. Aidan, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate you. Until next time.